My father is a treacherous official. My fiancé was the one who raided my house. When he put the iron chain around my neck, he was even more tender than when he put a wreath on me that year. On the day my father was beheaded, I was calmly catching lice from my mother. I said, if there is fire, I can stir for the lion and add a pot of wine. Unexpectedly, I made the young general next door, who was hanging his collarbone, laugh. The 9 female relatives of the Yun family were all imprisoned in the Tianlao, waiting for the emperor to decide their fate. But in the end, they were either sold or taken into the Jiaowei Fang's eye. Ping Ping, my mother is calling me. What time is it? My mother is sick, and she fell ill when she came here 3 days ago. I looked at the sky through the narrow air hole and whispered, noon, around noon. My mother held my hand tightly and repeated these 2 words helplessly. Noon is the time when the Yun family is destroyed. My father is about to be beheaded, and the men of the Yun family are about to set off to the northern desert as exiles. My mother burst into tears, and my aunt and cousins also started crying. Second aunt begged me, Ping Ping, go and ask Song Yan to rescue you and your sister. He can do it. Song Yan is my fiancé. 4 years ago, he was a new third-place winner in the imperial examination. My father admired his talent and betrothed me to him. He has a smooth career and has been promoted all the way. He is deeply trusted by the prince. But now he is also the cabinet hand of Qingmi and Yun family. I wiped the tears of second aunt. He won't help us. My aunt cried in my arms, and my cousins also surrounded me and cried and called for their sister. I looked at the light coming from the vent, which was too high and empty to catch. There were heavy footsteps behind me. I turned around, thinking it was the eunuch who came to announce the decree, but unexpectedly I saw Song Yan. He was wearing a scarlet robe and a double-eared official hat. He held his head high and stood a fence away from me. Our eyes met, and at that moment, I thought of the scene when I first met Song Yan. She was wearing a gray, long gown that was washed white, and she came up to me and said, Yuan An pays respects to the eldest lady. Now she is in a high position, and I am a prisoner that she looks down on. Second then begged her to save the 4 of us sisters. It is not a pity for them to die, but we sisters were raised in a greenhouse. How can we go to a place like the Jiaowei Fang's eye? Song Yan listened silently, but her eyes were always on me. She suddenly asked, why doesn't the eldest lady ask? The cell was quiet, and the aunt's hopeful eyes fell on my face. I knew what second aunt meant, and I also understood Song Yan's purpose. I knelt down in front of Song Yan. Please help me, Lord Song, and save the sisters. I kowtowed to him calmly. If you can succeed, Ping Ping is willing to work like a cow and a horse in this life to repay you. 3 feet away across melon, Song Yan's dull but happy laughter came. He half squatted down and said jokingly, the 4 sisters are all my concubines. Is the eldest lady willing? I paused for a moment and continued to kowtow. I replied that the Lord is a gentleman and knows the classics and the style. It is a blessing for my sisters to be your concubine. She laughed again. Song didn't know that the eldest lady was so flexible. I bowed my head to answer her, but your blessing is my disaster. Song Yan stood up, brushed her away with his sleeves, and a cold voice fell on my head. Eldest lady, Song will go to the Jiaowei Fang's eye to see you. Song Yan finished speaking, laughed and left. I stood up and watched his back calmly as he left. Ping Ping. The second aunt hugged me and said sorry. It was my aunt who had a wild idea. I shouldn't have let you ask that heartless thing. I comforted the second aunt and turned my eyes to look at the person with the scapula next door. His disheveled hair covered his face, and he sat cross-legged in the corner of the wall, not moving for 3 days. I thought he was dead, but just now I heard the sound of iron chains on his scapula. He was still alive. Who is that? My 5-year-old sister leaned against me unasked in my ear. He is Zhao Xing, the youngest general in this dynasty. At the age of 15, he followed his father to fight in all directions in unified Mo beyond just 10 years. Zhao Xing's achievements will be recorded in history and admired by future generations. This is just what I think, because Zhao Xing has been imprisoned here for half a year for treason. Do you remember the general I met in Qinghe Pavilion on August 12 last year? My sister nodded. The handsome and divine general. That day when Zhao Xing returned to Beijing, the streets were empty and the whole city was cheering. I was fortunate to see his face, which was as majestic as the sky. I sat by the wooden railing and kept looking at him. The light from the vent dimmed, and snoring sounded all around, but I still looked at him. When I was tired, I changed my posture and leaned on the wooden railing. When the drum sounded 5 times in a row, Zhao Xing raised his head, and he also looked at me through the thick darkness. I stood up and knelt to salute him. He sneered and closed his eyes again. I pinched my wrist with my fingertips, forcing myself to wake up and maintain the same posture as him. Another peaceful and terrifying day passed. My second sister asked me, "When will we be taken away?" I told her, if the decree was not announced yesterday, we still have 5 days. The emperor attends court every 5 days, and today is over. My second sister pointed at the air hole, and I nodded. Then there are still 4 days. My second sister was terrified and hid to the side and cried. I still looked at Xiao Xing. Late at night, when the drum sounded 5 times in a row, Xiao Xing opened his eyes again and met my sight of looking at him. He still sneered and closed his eyes without moving. At dawn, the jailer threw breakfast on the dry straw. I picked it up and fed it to my mother. My mother didn't eat it. She said she would rather die than see me convert to Christianity. Fiancé still has 3 days, I told him. You live for another 3 days. If there is no way to survive, you can I again. My mother chewed the dry and hard steamed buns as I said. It was the 2nd day of February. After nightfall, I could vaguely hear the noise of oil lamps on the street. What was I doing on the 2nd day of February last year? It seemed that I was in the palace with the queen to watch the oil lamps. The crown princess's lotus lantern fell on my skirt and burned my clothes. The queen scolded the crown princess, and the crown prince led the crown princess to apologize to me. I smiled and said it was okay. Unknowingly, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and Xiao Xing opened his eyes. I still saluted him. He stared at me, and I looked at him. There were billowing smoke and snow all around, and I seemed to follow his eyes to the vast and cold Mobi. General, I collected my mind and lowered my voice. The people need you. I couldn't see his expression clearly, only his dark but still clear eyes revealed a hint of interest. After a long time, he began to laugh. Yun Shen's character can raise a beautiful girl like you. He changed his posture, leaned on the wooden railing, and squinted at me. You have been watching me for 3 days. Is it the people who need me or you? I replied. It makes no difference. I am also a commoner. I have been watching him for 3 days just for now. If we want to escape from prison, there are 9 of us, women and children. Not to mention whether we can escape. We have nowhere to hide even if we get out. But what if Xiao Xing, who is highly skilled in martial arts and has the support of Mobi, accompanies us? I want to live. But Xiao Xing was unmoved and just held the iron chain to signal me. I said, just ask if the general wants to leave. If you want to, I have a way to remove the iron chain on you. He said expressionlessly, no. Xiao Xing ignored me. The steamed bun in front of him had been dragged away by the mouse. I realized that he had not eaten or drunk for a long time. When had dawned, the emperor will come to court tomorrow, and I don't have much time left. The jailer threw in 9 steamed buns into bowls of water. I stood up and called him, Sir, what's the matter? Aren't you going to deliver General Zhao's breakfast? The jailer frowned and scolded me. You are going to die. Why do you care about others? After that, he was about to leave. He is committing suicide. I lowered my voice. If he dies here, the people of the world will be angry. The jailer laughed, his eyes showing sarcasm. What does the anger of the people have to do with me? I said word by word, the anger of the people must be quelled by the court, and killing people to quell anger is the best way. Think about it carefully. The jailer was about to leave, but suddenly turned back to look at me. I looked back at him quietly with a firm gaze. The jailer walked away quickly, and later brought rice and hot soup, squatting in front of Xiao Xing to persuade him to eat. Xiao Xing was like an old monk in meditation, motionless as a mountain. I'll cross the wooden fence, I said. Let me persuade General Xiao. Xiao Xing suddenly opened his eyes and looked at me. This was the first time he opened his eyes during the day, but I didn't look at him. I earnestly said to the old man, I only asked the official to give my mother a pot of clean water. The old man agreed, but stood outside the wooden fence to be on guard. I knelt in front of Xiao Xing and put a spoonful of rice to his lips. Xiao Xing stared at me and looked at him. His eyes were cold, like a deep pool darkened bottom. I was cowardly for a moment, but only for a moment. Compared with life and death, everything is insignificant. General, do you think I am pretty? I asked him. He raised his eyebrows, locked his eyes with me, and said sarcastically, ugly. I glanced at my messy temples. General, look again. Even uglier, he said. I was the most beautiful in the capital at the age of 15. The general thinks I'm ugly, but his vision is not good. Xiaoxing smiled. So you are using the beauty trap? I have nothing but my face. I looked at him calmly. Just make the best use of it. Xiaoxing pushed the rice spoon away. Why didn't you use it on Song Yan that day? I motioned for him to eat first. After a moment of stalemate, he ate this spoonful of rice. I heard the old man outside the wooden fence let out alongside. Xiaoxing couldn't move with the second spoonful. I took a half step west, getting closer to him. The closer I was, the more horrible I could see the new scar on his face. I don't know whose misfortune it was that the once handsome and heroic general fell to this point. Song Yan doesn't deserve it, I said. Xiao Xing ate the second spoonful. The old man was grateful, but Xiao Xing was not. When I left, he whispered in my ear, it's still ugly. I knelt down and saluted and said yes. This person is stubborn. I want him to leave. If he doesn't want to, everything I do is in vain. I can't waste time on him anymore. My younger sister whispered to me, Sister is not ugly, it's the general's vision that is not good. My second sister said, The general has been fighting for many years. He must not be able to distinguish between beauty and ugliness. I smiled and nodded. The iron chain next door made a slight sound. I looked over and saw that Xiao Xing had entered into meditation again. What should I do? If I can't leave the prison, I can only go to the Jiaoyi Fangs I first and then make plans. But what if the 9 of us are separated? I stared at the prison door. From the wooden fence to the door, I counted a total of 26 when I came in. There are for night guards and 6-day guards. The old and recalled guard is on duty tonight, and the other 3 will go to sleep in the second half of the night. It is best to act between the hours of the ox and the ox. Leave the cell and go out from the left gate. There is an alley leading to Song Yan's small courtyard. He has 2 carriages, a seriously ill mother and a maid. Take her out of the city at dawn, and fight to the death 9 against 3. I pushed aside the straw and drew a route on the ground. Suddenly, I heard someone approaching outside the wooden fence. I looked up at the other person. The imperial decree appoints you and your 4 sisters to the Jiaoyi Fang's eye. Song Yan stood with his hands behind his back, facing me. The others will be sold by the government brokerage. I clenched my fists, stood up and said, Thank you, Lord Song, for informing me in advance. I have informed the Jiaoyi Fangs I am will not let you receive other guests. I smiled at him. Ping Ping is waiting for you. Song Yan was very satisfied and turned to leave. Passing by Xiao Xing's cell, he paused for a moment, turned around and was about to leave, but suddenly his knees softened and he fell to his knees. Song Yan covered his knees and glared at Xiao Xing angrily. What does General Xiao mean? Xiao Xing sneered. Wait. It was late at night, and I waited quietly. Suddenly the iron chain made a sound. I turned my head and my eyes met Xiao Xing's eyes. Neither he nor I spoke, just staring at each other. His eyes told me that he knew I would act later. The old jailer was kind, and I would call him in after his companion fell asleep. At this time, Xiao Xing knocked on Mulan. He said. The jailer was dozing off, but suddenly woke up and quickly gave his supper to Xiao Xing to feed. He kept staring at me. The jailer hurriedly fed him. Xiao Xing glanced at him and said coldly, Get out. Yes, yes. The jailer understood and looked at me pleadingly. I agreed, still holding the right spoon. I looked at Xiao Xing. General, are you not going to commit suicide? Xiao Xing ate the rice in the spoon, and Yang Mei asked me, Do you think you can get away? I shook my head. But you have to try. It is because the chances of winning are slim that I came to beg him. But he didn't want to, so I can only rely on myself. Try with your life? We looked at each other in silence. Why don't you beg me? His voice was low, like some rubbing against my ears, with a hint of teasing. He was waiting for me to beg him. Why can't the beauty trap move him? But I really have nothing. The Yun mansion is now collapsed, and there's nothing to promise it. My mind was racing, and I made up my mind and held his hand. Please, General, I said softly, I want to go out. As long as people are alive, there are thousands of possibilities. The lives of my sisters and brothers and my people. As long as Xiaoxing is willing, we all have a chance to survive. I can't guess why he changed his mind, but he is undoubtedly the strongest straw I can grasp. As long as he is willing, I will do anything. His sharp eyes fell on my face, peeling off something layer by layer. I held his hand tightly. Have you thought it through? He asked me. I have thought it through. I replied to him. No regrets, no regrets. She swept the bowl away and held my hand in return. The iron buckle on the wall behind him was pulled up by the roots and dust flew. I looked at him in astonishment. He held my hand and walked out the door step by step. The chain on his scapula was not a burden to him, but instead became his weapon. Wherever he went, sand and rocks flew, and he destroyed everything. On the streets of the capital late at night, the shadows of people in black danced. They supported Xiaoxing like vicious wolves that had been dormant for a long time in the dark night, biting off the necks of the soldiers guarding the city with their sharp fangs. The hot blood splattered all over the ground. Xiaoxing hugged me, jumped on his horse, and galloped away. The night wind in February was still very cold, but I felt warm. This is the wind that belongs to me, the living wind. I heard shouting on the city wall, and someone shouted, Miss Yun kidnapped General Xiao. Report it quickly. I was stunned, but Xiaoxing smiled. Why did I kidnap you? I frowned. I wanted to die. You went to jail for 5 days, and then I escaped. It's not wrong to say that you kidnapped me. Xiaoxing smiled and said, Didn't the general want to escape from prison a long time ago, but he had no reason to do so? Just when I came, he had an excuse to be confused by the beauty and messed up his mind. I don't believe Xiaoxing would be tempted by the beauty. He was in a good mood, whatever you think. I pursed my lips and said, That's what I think. Xiaoxing laughed heartily. His arm was around my waist. As long as you are happy. I couldn't help laughing too, and stared at the road nervously. It was late at night, and I was afraid that he would accidentally fall into the ditch with his horse. But he was very relaxed, and he was running all the way, and both he and his horse were calm and steady. Hold on for another hour, and then you can stop and rest. He thought I was panicking and comforted me. Don't be afraid. I'm not afraid if I'm here. Really? He tilted his head, and his breath swept past my ears. Poor me, my hand is almost pinched off. I hurriedly let go, my embarrassed cheeks burning. My mother and the others were led by Xiaoxing's different subordinates, and they went their separate ways and would meet again in Mobi. In just 2 hours, Xiaoxing's power had intimidated me. We stopped at the post station and treated him with sincerity and respect, as if Xiaoxing was just passing by on business. Why is the general willing to be imprisoned? I was waiting outside the mirror room holding medicine. Xiaoxing came out of the bath, shirtless, with scars all over his body that were shocking. He sat down and I applied medicine on his back. Their evidence is solid and I am powerless to refute it, so I will stay in jail for a few days. Xiaoxing said nonchalantly why he was plotting treason. His capable deputy general defected to the prince and forged his crimes. After reading it, he also felt that the charges were well made and praised the deputy general for his progress. As for why the court didn't kill him, he said lightly. Do you think the soldiers he raises are all vegetarians? I said. After escaping death 9 times, the general will surely be very blessed in the future. He put on his clothes and looked back at me. So you are also a very blessed person. I smiled and replied, thanks to the general. He smiled but said nothing and leaned over the bed. I stopped by the bed and took off my coat. General, let me sleep on the outside so that I can take care of you at night. After I finished speaking, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes, and the tips of his ears also turned slightly red, but quickly returned to normal. You are the most interesting woman Xiao has ever seen. I let my hair down, took the lamp and placed it beside the bed. What's interesting about it? I asked her under the lamp, and she smiled but said nothing. I offered myself to ask the general to save my family. Now that the general has done it, I will keep my promise. I lowered my eyebrows, clenched my fingers, and was very scared. I had imagined my wedding with floating candlelight and soft brocade quilts, but I never expected that I would trade with others after my family was broken up and do things in this old post station. You are really trustworthy. Xiao Xing supported his cheek and looked at me, but I also have questions. I took a deep breath, sat down on the edge of the bed, and motioned for him to ask. What are your plans after this night? I suddenly looked up at him and frowned. What do you mean, General? Do you want a fleeting romance? I think Miss Yun is looking for a fleeting romance. Xiaoxing's face sank slightly, as if he was dissatisfied with me. I looked at him in surprise. Tell me, what are your plans for the future? Xiaoxing's eyes swept across my collarbone, paused for a moment, and then moved his gaze to the candlelight. The candlelight jumped and went out. The room was dark, with only the sound of our close breathing. I whispered, my brothers and others were exiled to Mobi, and I want to save them. Save your family's lives first, then make plans. He suddenly sat up straight, very close to me. And then, he asked me, slowly plan to return to Beijing for revenge. I grabbed the bedsheet and propped myself up to lean back. Even though I couldn't see him, I could feel his strong aggressiveness. This man was like a beast, different from all the men I had ever met. And then, he leaned forward a little more. If you are still alive, live well. I couldn't hold on, and my arms began to shake. Suddenly, my waist loosened, and he hugged me, straightened me up, and said dissatisfiedly, you talk too much nonsense. I was puzzled. Didn't you ask me before you said it? He turned over and slept with his back to me, and said in a muffled voice, I sent someone to send a soft couch. You can sleep on it later. General, are you sure? Do you think I really fell into your beauty trap? He lifted the quilt and stared at me. I never knew that someone's eyes could be so bright in the dark. Dissatisfaction and ridicule were expressed so bluntly in his eyes. I told you you're ugly. Your beauty trick won't work on me. He turned over the quilt again and ignored me. This guy. I was about to speak when Cheng knocked on the door and brought a soft couch and bedding, which were placed next to the bed. I lay down with my clothes on and had a dreamless night. The next day we changed to a carriage. Although there were investigations along the way, Xiaoxing always found a way to avoid them. I was still wondering why Xiaoxing was unhappy. I opened the curtains and looked outside. There were 7 or 8 children playing in the fields. I asked him inexplicably, General, do you like children? He had his eyes closed to rest, but suddenly he opened his eyes and looked at me with a smile on his lips. It was a strange smile. It was not until we arrived in Mobi that I understood its meaning. The carriage stopped, and 7 or 8 children, both boys and girls, suddenly rushed out of the street, surrounding Xiaoxing and shouting, Daddy is back. There was also a toddler who called him Daddy indisticently. He picked him up and stuffed him in my arms, instructing the child to call me mother. The child hugged my neck and kissed my face softly. He showed his fine teeth, smiled at me, and called me Mom in a crisp voice. I looked at Xiaoxing, motioning him to give me a reasonable explanation. After all, anyone would be startled if there were 7 or 8 children chasing after him and calling him mother. Xiaoxing touched the child's head and said to me provocatively, I'm afraid you will have to have a few more children in your future plans. After he finished speaking, he swung his arms and walked away. He was actually quite proud. I suddenly remembered the reason why he was feeling awkward. He was not in the plan I told him that night. I saved the oldest boy. Can you tell me what happened? Hello, Madine. The boy thanked her very much, but didn't call her mother. Our parents are dead, and the general has placed us in a place where people are taking care of us. We are not the general's children. It was just as I guessed. Where does the general live? Show me the way. I stayed in Xiaoxing's courtyard, but he didn't go home for a month, because the court sent General Wang and Supervisor Kai to take over the military power of Mo Bi half a year ago. There were many things to deal with. I didn't disturb him. I cleaned up the house with my mother and others, and found things to do while waiting for my brothers. Mo Bi is bigger than I thought. Soldiers are soldiers in wartime and civilians in peacetime. The wasteland in this area has been reclaimed, and the wheat seedlings are lush and growing very well. Mo Bi is not a yellow desert at all, unlike the rumors. The eldest sister pinched a shriveled ear of wheat and put it in her mouth to chew, and then showed a look of surprise. It's patinated and sweet. Really? Let me try it. We fell from the clouds of fine clothes and food into the quagmire, but fortunately we didn't pay money, and we adapted to the new environment and identity quickly. Let's open a school. I said to my eldest sister, there are only two teachers here. They are old and weak, and they are not dedicated. The daughter of the young family is not proficient in poetry, calligraphy, and the 6 arts, but she is more than enough to teach children. The most important thing is that we need to do something to reflect the value of being a human being. My eldest sister nodded. I will listen to you, sister. The school was set up, but it was a bit difficult at first. After all, our identities are unknown, and we are women. It is inevitable that some people think that we are untalented and harm the children. So I stood on the street holding the book of Psalms, reading from morning to noon. Many people came to listen. Some people thought I was sensational, but after listening for 2 days, they knew what I meant. 5 days later, my eldest sister, I and the two teachers, whose school officially opened. The poor people in Mobi City sent their children here. I also picked up the medical books again, carried soups and soups, and changed herbal medicines. In a blink of an eye, it was May, and my uncles and brothers arrived and entered the military camp. The news came that everyone was alive. The last stone in my heart fell to the ground, and I concentrated more on teaching and studying medicine. I also apprenticed to a military doctor and practiced medicine everywhere. It starts snowing in September in Mobi. When I opened the door in the morning, there was a foot of snow in the yard. I was shoveling snow when I heard footsteps behind me. Turning back, Xiaoxing, dressed in a black robe, was leaning against the gate of the yard with his arms folded, looking at me with a smile. Are you just here? Xiaoxing hummed and entered his yard. Perhaps he was surprised that it was different from before, and was stunned for a moment. It was too simple before, so I bought some furniture with the household funds you gave me. General, don't you like it? I took away the plum vase with flowers. Xiaoxing took it and put it back in its place. He looked at me and said, it feels like a home, it's nice. I was stunned and went to pour him tea. He looked at my hand. Mr. King, which one do you want? I wiped my rough hands and looked at him with raised eyebrows. What about the third title? Why does the general avoid mentioning it? What? His hand holding the teacup trembled. General's wife. I sat down and supported my cheek to look at him. This is my favorite title. His eyes sank, and he suddenly hugged me, sat on his legs, pinched my waist, and asked me, do you really like it? When he said this, his eyes were locked on me like a... My heart beat a few times, and I climbed up his shoulders with trembling hands. He hasn't been back for half a year. It's rare for him to come back. I need to seize the opportunity. Of course. I arrived. He glanced at my hand on his shoulder, and then looked up at my eyes. The seriousness and expectation on his face gradually faded, and was replaced by a kind of powerlessness. What did I do just now to make him have such an expression on my face? I was stunned, but he had already pushed me up and said distantly, everyone says you are capable. I will leave the women and children in the city to you. However, the court has gathered troops to attack Mobi. There are many spies in the city recently. You should be careful. He is leaving. Xiaoxing, I was furious and blocked the door with my hands on my hips. You should make your words clear before you leave. I looked at him provocatively. Xiaoxing hugged his arms and said to me, don't pretend to be an ignorant and cute girl with me. I put my hands on my hips down. In the past 6 months, you have opened a school, practiced medicine for free, and built a Mobi Chamber of Commerce out of thin air. What else have you done? He asked me. I paused and couldn't keep the smile on my face. What Chamber of Commerce? Aren't you just trying to force me to open a horse market outside the pass? He suddenly pinched my chin and squinted his eyes. What else did you do behind my back? I was forced to look up at him, colluded with the barbarians, used the barbarians to cause external troubles, and then used me to stir up trouble. At this time of external and internal troubles, you can take advantage of the east wind to go back and seek revenge on the prince. Xiaoxing questioned me word by word. There was more disappointment in his words than anger. I adjusted my tone to calm him down. General, calm down. I just want revenge. He interrupted me, still aggressive. Didn't you say that you like the position of general's wife? Xiao Xing sneered. Or are you just pretending to be nice and never thought about giving your true heart? You are just using me? The atmosphere froze like ice. He pointed at me. What a calculation. You are worthy of being Yun Shen Chi's good daughter. After saying that, he turned away. I looked at his back and my face darkened. What he meant was that Yun Shen Chi was a traitor, and I was his good daughter, so I was naturally a traitor as well. I lowered my eyes and looked at my rough hands. The best star in teaching on practicing medicine. I wanted to open a horse market, but Xiao Xing didn't want to. The barbarians had been timid and didn't dare to invade because of the tyrants. But I needed the barbarians. So I extended my influence to the outside of the Great Wall through the Chamber of Commerce. The emperor and the prince had been in a state of surrender for too long, so long that they had forgotten the threats and cruelty of the barbarians. They were living in peace and prosperity, and even dared to imprison the tyrants. They thought that without the tyrants they could continue to revel every night naive. As for whether my father was a traitor or not, I knew it very well. He was just a knife in the hands of the prince. The knife was good, so it was naturally placed in the hall, but when I blame someone, it is the knife's fault. I just want to let the prince know that the knife will bite back. I will send the evil fruit he sowed to his mouth at any cost and let him swallow it. As for Zhao Xing, I'm still not sure why he is willing to take me back to Mobi after escaping from prison. But the result is what I want. Although I haven't seen him in the past 6 months, I can see that the whole Mobi is peaceful under his governance. Zhao Xing has a pure heart and devotes all his enthusiasm to Mobi and the people here. He is strong enough, fearless, and disdains to collude with foreign countries. But I have nothing, so I will spare no expense, exhaust all calculations, and take it step by step. Suddenly the door was pushed open, and I thought it was Xiao Xing, but it was my little sister who came in. She put a bag of apples and winter dates in her bag. The general gave it to me. The general is so kind. He bit the dates and handed me another one. My mother said that Mobi was sealed off, and these fruits in the south are more precious than gold. My heart felt like it was pierced by a needle. My mother invited the general to dinner, but he said he had something to do and left. My younger sister asked me mysteriously, "Did you have a quarrel?" I nodded. We had a quarrel for a few sentences. My younger sister said firmly, "It must be the eldest sister who is wrong." I pinched his face. He started the quarrel. "How can I be wrong?" I heard my aunt and my mother whispering. He said that my eldest sister was not moved, but just wanted to secure the position of the general's wife. He is the general and is not easy to fool. I rubbed my eyebrows. What else did she say? My aunt also said that you were too clever for the general and used the beauty trap when you saw him. The general is 25 years old. If he was a beautiful man, he would have had many wives and concubines. I covered my younger sister's mouth. Go to school quickly and don't eavesdrop on adults' conversations in the future. The younger sister took away all the fruit she had brought because I bullied his general. I held the only date in my hand and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sister, the older sister followed in. A peddler named Kiao is looking for you and is waiting at the intersection. I threw the dates to the older sister and hurried out, grabbing my cloak. Sister, why did you buy furs from outside the Great Wall? The general can get better ones. The older sister asked me, I want to build a big factory for the general. How can I let him get furs for me? I stared at the older sister. Keep it a secret for me. The older sister nodded and emphasized, why do you want furs from outside the Great Wall? The barbarian stuff stinks. Xiao Mi is a peddler I met when I was standing on the street to recruit students. He is 27 years old this year. He inherited his father's business and does business inside and outside the Great Wall. The business is not small, but it is a business that takes risks. After Xiao Xing was imprisoned last year, the barbarians were ready to make a move, and they did it several times. He and his brother happened to be collecting skins from the herdsmen's homes outside the Great Wall. Seeing that they were Han people, the barbarians killed his brother on the spot. He narrowly escaped death, but also lost one leg and became a cripple. Xiao Mingyi and I stood at the intersection. I pretended to carry the skins in his car. but actually chatted with him. How is it? The leader of the barbarians said that if you kill General Zhao, he will lend you troops. Xiao Miyi said. Got it. I calmly changed a piece of skin. Words are not enough. Did you stamp the letter I asked you to write? Xiao Minyi stuffed the letter into the skin and handed it to me. Madame, this skin is suitable for the job. Thank you very much. I held the skin and asked him how much it cost. Xiao Minyi couldn't help asking me, Madame, do you really want to kill the general? As for a cup of poisoned wine, no matter how capable Xiaoxing is, he can't stand our son. Don't worry about me, I replied casually. Have I sent my letter? Xiao Min was stunned for a moment and nodded after a silence. But will Song Yan write back to you? He is your enemy. I gave him the banknote. This is the household allowance Xiaoxing gave me. In the past 6 months, he has brought me 100 taels at the beginning of every month. I didn't hesitate and took all the money. There is no hatred, only interest. I said, Xiaomi wants to be rich enough to rival a country and fulfill the wishes of his father and brother. How can he be rich enough to rival a country? He doesn't know, and I don't know either. But we can work together. He's betting, and so am I. He said we were like rats in the gutter, evil and dirty. I said, don't be afraid. We'll spend money to buy the historian's pen after the matter is done. Xiao Miyi smiled and said this was a good idea. I went back and read the letter written by the barbarian leader. The handwriting was ugly, but it was indeed his handwriting and seal. I stared at the words carefully, uncopied them carefully, and then turned over a piece of chicken blood stone and carved a seal. 10 days later, Song Yan's reply arrived. He replied to me one by one, saying that he could help me return to Beijing, give me a new identity, and let me be his concubine. Song Yan's handwriting is beautiful and easier to copy than the ugly handwriting of the barbarian. I know his handwriting, but unfortunately the house was searched suddenly, and I didn't have time to burn this one. 2 days later, I wrote a reply and found Xiao Minyi. Please send it to me again. Everything I want to say to the leader is in the letter. Xiao Minyi must have left immediately. The content of the letter was very simple. I promised to kill Xiaoxing and asked him how many soldiers he could borrow. I also told him that the court troops would attack Mobi on the 2nd day of October and asked him to send troops on the 3rd day. 4 days later, Xiao Minyi came back with a reply. The next day, I wrote back to Song Yan. This time, I didn't look for Xiao Minyi, but went to Yuyi Station to travel with the letter in my own pocket. When I rode out of the city, I stood at the intersection and watched him leave in person. On the way home, I bought half a caddy of wine and some meat and vegetables at the intersection. Just as I finished packing, Xiaoxing pushed the door open. His eyes wandered over the fur I was sewing. Who is this for? He sat down at the table, which was filled with bowls, chopsticks unleashed. Are there guests coming? He was dusty. His face was still haggard from the cold wind, and he had lost a lot of weight. Only his eyes could still see. I lifted the clothes. General, try it. Xiaoxing tried it and the size was just right. I just need to sew 3 more buttons. I helped him take off his clothes, but he stroked his clothes and said in a muffled voice, No hurry, let me put on something first. I agreed and pointed to the food and wine on the table. Haven't you eaten yet? The wine is still warm, just right for drinking. I poured him some wine. Xiaoxing stared at the glass of wine in front of him, his fingers tapping the table, and looked at me again, his eyes bloodshot. What's wrong? I asked him. Are you too tired? Nothing. I just smell the aroma of wine and feel moved that I have a family. Xiaoxing picked up the wine and put the glass to his lips. Before drinking, he asked me again, Do you really want me to drink it? I nodded. It's prepared for the general. I smiled and said, The general was angry last time. This wine is my apology to you. He clutched the glass. His fingertips turned white, and suddenly raised his head to put the wine into his throat, then lowered his eyes to look at me. It smells good, but it cuts your throat when you drink it. He threw the glass on the table and stared at me sarcastically. It's Xiao's fault for being short-sighted and identifying the wrong wine. Xiaoxing's breathing was unstable. I took the initiative to hold his hand. I have been in Mobi for half a year, and the general has never accompanied me out. Others must think that my title of general's wife is self-proclaimed. His palms were broad and warm, with thin calluses and a scar on the palms. I scratched the scar and smiled back at him. There was doubt in his eyes. This was the first time we went to the street together. The weather was very good today. I stopped in front of the old man selling wine and said with a smile, "My general said your wine is excellent." The old man kept bowing and bowing. I gave £half to Xiaoxing to carry. Xiaoxing paid, picked up the wing pot, glanced at our clasped hands, and then looked at me. The people surrounded him and asked him, "If the imperial court sends troops to attack, what will everyone do? Will the militia in the city go into battle? We just need to stay in the city and not go out." He paused and clenched my hand tightly. He spit out a mouthful of blood, then stared at me and fell straight to the ground. The street was quiet. Even the wind stopped. Then the whole street was noisy and crying. I squatted beside Xiaoxing. My hand was still held by him. He didn't close his eyes, but looked straight at me. On September 27, Xiaoxing was poisoned and could not be cured. He only had one breath left. People all over the street were witnesses. Xiaoxing was carried to the military camp. At night, I sat at the table and my mother pointed at my nose and scolded me. "Yun Ping King, you are exactly the same as your father, unscrupulous and short-sighted." When my father went to the prince, my mother opposed it. "You don't understand these things. I have my own ideas," I said to my mother. My mother listened to my father sitting on the chair because this was what my father said to him back then. A few years later, his daughter used this sentence to reply to him again. "You can be treacherous, but you can't harm loyal people." "That's a hero, my mother said. My mother went out in despair. "Your Yun family has been scolded for generations, and it has nothing to do with me." I don't care. On September 29, Xiaoxing didn't wake up. Although the army in Mobi was anxious, it was not chaotic. This is Xiaoxing's ability. Even if he really died, Mobi would not be in chaos. On October 2, the imperial court troops arrived in Mobi. Because Xiaoxing was about to die, their military morale was extremely high. But the southern gate of Mobi was closed and refused to fight. On the third day of October, the barbarians came with 3,000 soldiers and attacked the north gate. But the north gate was closed and refused to fight. Mobi was besieged, and there were internal and external troubles. Tiao Mi sat with me in the courtyard to drink tea and asked me anxiously, "Madame, what should we do next?" "I don't know." "Is the rice and charcoal prepared by the Chamber of Commerce sufficient?" I asked. "We prepared it when the court sealed the business road before." I nodded. Tiao Mi paced in the courtyard. His limping leg went up and down, which reminded me of Song Yan's superior scolding him. He came to ask me to help him. He has a leg disease, and his walking is also up and down, and he is very fierce. I didn't agree at first, but Song Yan kept asking me. Song Yan is the most handsome when he asks for help. His eyes are red and soft, and I feel pity for him. I want to see him begging me again. On the 4th day of October, Mobi became a jar. On the first day of being besieged by the two armies, I received a letter from the barbarians asking me to find a way to open the north gate. I burned the letter. On the 10th day after I became a vassal in Mobi, Song Yan's letter arrived. In the letter, he asked me to leave the city and sent someone to escort me back to Beijing. I burned the letter. On the 15th day after I became a vassal in Mobi, news from the capital arrived. Song Yan was imprisoned for treason. The charge and evidence were the letters between him and the barbarians. Of course, I wrote the letter. There are so many spies in the city, and my words and deeds cannot be hidden from Xiaoxing or the people in the capital. The court can use any despicable means to fight Mobi, but it cannot collude with the barbarians. The nature of the matter is different. Now the barbarians and the court troops are so tacitly cooperating from the inside and outside that it cannot be explained without collusion. On the 17th day after I became a vassal in Mobi, Song Yuan's letter asking me to come arrived. I wrote back to him and asked him to wait for me to return to Beijing. Good news continued that day. The barbarians ran out of food and grass and had to withdraw their troops. In the capital, the emperor imprisoned the prince. Song Yan was the prince's capable subordinate, and the attack on Mobi was the prince's sole responsibility. His Majesty was only 48. Would he guess that his son wanted to inherit the throne in advance? On October 22, I left the city with the help of Xiaomini. There was a salt delivery man waiting for me outside the city. I abandoned the car and changed horses and rushed all the way to Beijing. Before leaving, I left a letter and a prescription at home. The letter was very long. I want to die in your service, but General, he is not tempted. After all, I owe you a great favor. It is a blessing for me and my people to follow you to Mobi. Mobi is your Mobi, and it is also the future home of my Yun clan. Please take care of me in the future. As for the revenge between my father and the general, let me take care of it. Will you laugh when you read this letter? How can a woman like me be so arrogant? I once read a book about rivers and lakes, in which a knight had a peerless mother and son knives. When fighting with the enemy, he often deliberately let the enemy pick up the mother knife. When the enemy thought he had won and was feeling proud, the knight's son knife came out and showed a killing move, which always succeeded. My father is the mother knife, and I'm the son knife. Please believe me, General, and wait for good news. On October 29, I arrived in the capital. After 7 days of eating and sleeping in the open, I was already emaciated. I went to the prison cell of the Ministry of Justice. This time I stood outside the wooden fence, and Song Yan was inside. He saw that my eyes were red with excitement. Mother Song begged me, Miss, it is not easy for you on and to be in this situation today. He did nothing wrong. You must explain to the emperor that the letters were all written by you. You are a woman and a guilty person, so you don't have to worry about many debts. If you can save Yuan An, it will also be a good deed for yourself. I looked at Song Yan. Why don't you beg, Lord Song? This is what Song Yan said to me at that time. He also knelt down to me. His eyes were red and soft, and I begged me pitifully, Yuan An, please save me, miss. After Yuan An gets out, he must marry you and stay with you forever. Such a Lord Song is really romantic and suave. I squatted in front of him. Then Lord Song, wait for me. Song Yan looked at me happily.